Welcome back to another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous, the internet's #1 podcast about buying and investing in small businesses. This week, I have my friend Casey Cutsail on the podcast. I've known Casey for probably 5 years. We're mutual members of the e-commerce fuel community. Casey's been in e-commerce for a long time. He owns a business called DIY Parts in the aftermarket automotive accessories niche. He also owns a 3PL with 3 separate locations. So he is neck deep in e-com. So I had him on this week and we discussed a deal that he had under LOI in his niche, what he really loved about it, and then what ultimately caused it to fall apart in Diligence. And then we also had him talk about a second deal in the FBA automotive space. And I really appreciated kind of his second level insights on the listing that you wouldn't see on the first read through unless you're in the industry. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Casey Cutsail.
Hey, Michael here. Want to talk to you about today's sponsor for the episode, which is CloudBookkeeping.com. So Cloud Bookkeeping is actually run by my neighbor, Charlie. So I've met him in person and can attest that he's a real human being and a good person. And what Cloud Bookkeeping does is offer a full suite of bookkeeping services, all in the cloud. For you around QuickBooks and other technologies that you're using as a small business owner. So if you're interested in getting the bookkeeping part of running a business off of your plate and focusing on running your business, Charlie and his team are one to call. They can put together a bunch of other stuff in terms of helping you manage and grow your business besides just bookkeeping, sophisticated reporting, definitely helping you get your QuickBooks online set up in the right way, and a number of things around payroll as well. So definitely know them and recommend them. If you want to find out more about Cloud Bookkeeping, you can go to their website at cloudbookkeeping.com. Reach out to Charlie. I know many of you have, and see if he can help you make your running your business easier and more fun by letting them help with a lot of the bookkeeping solutions. So, and when you call, mention this podcast. It would help us and help Charlie know that we're supporting him as well. So thanks a bunch, and cloudbookkeeping.com as the sponsor for today's episode.
Casey, it is great to have you on Acquisitions Anonymous. We've been friends for a little while, met in person several times, mutual friends through e-commerce fuel. Great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So if you could tell listeners a little bit about who you are, the businesses you own, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I have been in e-commerce for 17 years. I started out on eBay and marketplaces. So that's one of my personal areas of expertise. Another area of expertise is logistics. I own a 3-location 3PL. It's a smaller 3PL, but we cater to e-commerce. So my e-commerce businesses specialize in automotive is our focus. We have several different small companies in e-commerce, automotive, a few different brands. And yeah, we were looking to add to our structure and kind of build out. Building brands is difficult, so I wanted to try my hand at purchasing one this time around.
Okay, so you got expertise in logistics. You said your 3PL has 3 different locations, so you're nationwide?
Correct, yeah. East Coast, North Carolina, Central is Texas, and then West Coast is California.
Okay, cool. So automotive was a space you knew well, from other brands that you'd had, earlier in your career. You decided that you wanted to buy another automotive accessories brand. That's something we're going to talk about today. Okay, cool. So Casey, you brought a deal today that you actually not only looked at, but got under LOI, and it ultimately fell apart. And we're going to get into kind of what you liked about it in the first place, why you went under LOI, and kind of what happened that made the deal fall apart. So if you're on YouTube, we'll put it up on the screen. Otherwise, I'll read it now. So this is a 16-year-old auto parts business that was founded in 2005. It continues to grow in revenue year over year and has done $6.6 million in sales in the trailing 12 months. The focus is on gas-charged lift supports. I'm going to need you to tell me what that is later. The products that are used in automotive vehicles, RVs, campers, boats, toolboxes, kitchen cabinets, and more. With a vast selection of products, this company is able to meet the high demand for lift supports. This has contributed to a 10% revenue and 36% SDE growth in the trailing 12 months. The business has diversified revenue channels with Amazon at 73%, their website at 19%, eBay at 6%, and Walmart at 2%. The seller would like to retire, and now is the ideal time for a new owner, Casey, to take over and continue the business's history of growth. The large opportunities for a new owner exist in improving the long-standing, but parentheses, not the most up-to-date online sales channels. And this includes advertising on Amazon, which is currently not being done, and utilizing FBA for more of the business's Amazon listings, FBA being fulfillment by Amazon. The current owner is comfortable with FBM and has not considered using FBA, meaning probably for most of the parts, it is not prime eligible. It says the business is currently SBA pre-qualified for a $2 million SBA loan. So running through the financials, the gross revenue is $6.6 million. The discretionary earnings are $750,000 on that $6.6 million. So a little over 10%, maybe 15% margin. Their inventory is plus or minus $850,000. It is SBA eligible, and that works out to an asking price multiple of 3.76x. So, Casey, tell us what you thought, when you first read this, what got you interested in the deal?
Yeah, so there was a lot to like. First of all, let's talk about what a lift support is. These are oftentimes called struts, and they go on hoods and trunks. So there will be one on each side of the hood or the trunk, and it helps either raise or slowly lower. It holds it in position while you're working on your vehicle or putting something in your trunk. So we call this a hard part. This is something that gets replaced when you need it. So when they go bad, and this is not something that you would want to go for a very long time. So you would want to replace it right away. So it has a really high conversion aspect to it. So yeah, a lot to like. 16-year-old business, that's fantastic. Seems like so many businesses you see are newer and consistent growth. As we got into the business, that was further confirmed. Very, very good growth. The thing that I really liked the most about this, which spoke to my area of expertise, was the Amazon things that it was the most of their business, but they were not tapping into some of the things that make Amazon businesses really successful, namely FBA or marketing. And yeah, the further we got into it, I saw that they weren't doing that and saw tremendous opportunity with that. So yeah, a lot to like on the surface.
So did they make their own gas charge struts, or were they a reseller of other brands?
They do both. So they're not a manufacturer. They probably started out 16 years ago reselling third-party brands, and then over that 16 years transitioned to private labeling and building their own brand. At least for the last 8 years or so, their private label brand was the majority of their business, which is a good thing.
That's a great thing. So they've got solid growth. They've got their own private label brand. They've got really good penetration on Amazon, but they're really not pulling any of the levers that work on Amazon. They're not prime eligible. They're not doing Amazon advertising. So I can see how you said, man, there's a lot of upside for me here in this deal. So I assume you did a fair bit of diligence and then got the business under LOI. By the time you got it under LOI, had you learned anything that gave you pause, or were you pretty gung-ho pre-LOI?
Pre-LOI, I would say pretty gung-ho. Not too much came up that was a red flag. Probably the only thing that I learned of prior to LOI was that it was a family business, and that there were multiple family members. The team was small, so the family made up a large percentage of the team and made up all of the leadership team. So I don't know how everybody feels about that, but that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. As we got into it further, I felt like it was a good thing, got to know them, and felt really good about it. But that was a little nerve-wracking at first.
So let me zoom in on that, because I would think that is so much of a bad thing. I would walk instantly, because the family is tied into the management team. The family's about to get a big check and become totally disincentivized. And my experience has been, typically, even when you have friends or family, when one of them leaves, all the other ones leave too within 6 months. So how did you get comfortable with that?
What I learned was that the family wanted to continue, and throughout many conversations, it was apparent that that was the mission. They maybe they would have gotten some kickback, but frankly, it was not the motive. They needed to continue in the business. They wanted to. The business is in a very expensive location to live, so the family was not going to retire on this selling. So I did firmly believe that they wanted to continue, and it was going to be financially a good choice for them and for the company to continue.
Okay, so because they were just doing the math on the multiple, you don't have to disclose, but you bid what you bid, but the asking bid was about $3 million. Seems like
Right.
little under $3 million. So I'm going to assume it was probably California, New York, one of these high cost of living spots. While $3 million is a lot of money, it's probably not never work again money, especially
Yeah.
split amongst a couple people.
Yeah, and I don't know if this executive summary said it or not, but the owner wanted to retire, and that was further confirmed. He was of age to retire, has had many successful businesses, has been doing this one a long time. He wants to retire, and the way it was worded, the family was not in a position to take this risk on financially and buy it out from him. So this was the alternative.
Okay, and then how did you get comfortable that the family then, maybe they wanted to buy it from him, but they didn't have the financial wherewithal? Casey swoops in. Hey, I'm your new deep pocketed Uncle Casey. Do everything I say. How'd you get comfortable with that?
It took a while, and a lot of conversations again to make sure that they were committed to the business. We didn't have any conversations about, hey, why are you not buying this business? I kind of left that alone. I didn't feel like that was my business to pry into why this wasn't working out a different way. Maybe they just didn't want the risk. It is very risky. They are selling the business at a peak time, and yeah, maybe they were scared of what they could do as a business operator, because as we know, operating a business and growing one and simply being a part of the leadership is very different. So I felt comfortable with it after many conversations.
Okay, so you got comfortable with it. You submitted your LOI. It was accepted. So now you've got 60 to 90 days to do exclusive due diligence. What did you start pressing on first?
So I started looking at what I know, which is obviously the P&L, but specifically digging into their Amazon account, reviewing the products, looking at their supply chain and the logistics, things that I knew. And yeah, things actually looked better than I expected. I
I'd love to
saw
see
more
that.
I saw more opportunity than I was kind of even banking on, which was great to see. I think there's a lot of potential with this business even still. Um, but yeah, as time went on, I I started to see some things. The first thing I saw was revenue wasn't growing 10% year over year. Maybe it was if you were looking at it on an annualized basis, but on a month to month, which I look at numbers pretty closely, it was actually flat. And throughout due diligence, it started to decrease. So that was concerning. There were some other things that cropped up that were concerning too, but that was the first.
So before we get into the other things, were you able to? It's interesting that the business started to roll over right as soon as they basically listed it for sale. Were you able to put your finger on why that happened?
I think so. So when I saw that, I was also very skeptical and wondered, oh, are they trying to pull one over on me and dump this thing before the wheels fall off? That did not happen. What I learned is that the operator, the owner, simply didn't pay close attention to the financials. They were 2 months delayed, and the time period from when this executive summary was built and everything was submitted, there were 3 months that lapsed from when I looked at it and when we became under LOI. So 5 months had passed, and that allowed for the time for things to start falling apart. They did say that one of the things they chose to do was order less inventory to prepare for the sale. Yeah, so that came back to bite them. I didn't go so far as to connect the dots if that was the whole story, but that was part of it. I did see where average order value increase and cost of goods were going up. So what I'm guessing another contributing factor is, hey, we have to raise our prices to maintain margin, and the market was not receptive to these price increases. Um, there are China competitors for this product. There are some name brands out there that maybe are more expensive. They kind of fall in between. So yeah, the gap was widening. Perhaps their pricing was no longer the right market fit for some of these part numbers.
Okay. So, and this was just so people know, what time frame was this?
The time
Like
frame
what
of
dates?
year,
Was
or
it was it earlier this year when supply chain they might have been getting cost increases?
yeah, so they listed the business for sale in Q4 of 2021, and we were under LOI right at the end of the year, and then yes, really got into it. The numbers really started decreasing January, February of 22.
Okay. So a combination of maybe took their eye off the ball a little bit because they didn't have good financial reporting and they figured, hey, we're selling this business. I'm not going to pay attention. Seems like they classically tried to bleed the balance sheet for cash. Hey, why am I going to order more inventory if Casey's just going to get it? Which, by the way, comes back to my soapbox for working capital adjustments in small deals, which which is a rat hole we don't have to go down again. But like this is just such classic seller behavior to want to leave you with essentially zero inventory, and then you as the buyer have to say, not like I'm not buying them separately. Like the inventory, the working capital is the blood of this body that keeps it working. And so then, if I immediately have to stroke a check for $500,000 of inventory on day one, or worse, I'm not going to be able to hit my sales goal because I'm out of inventory because of lead times. I need to take that out of purchase price. So, I mean, that is like the number one dirty seller trick that you should be on the lookout for. It seems like these guys were trying it too.
Yeah, I don't think it was intentional that the decision to go light on inventory obviously was intentional. They said it was, but I genuinely don't think that they were doing anything to make this deal not to be something other than it was on the surface. Like a lot of things, almost everything checked out. Like these were good people, and I hate it fell apart like it did.
Okay. Yeah. So, maybe not malicious, but, sometimes they just go, hey, I'm not going to do it. They don't realize that they're not trying to screw you. They just say, why would I don't want to cut this check. I'm not going to see any money back.
Yeah, just a bad decision that in the short term seems like a good thing, but in the long term was not a good thing.
Yeah. So it seems like that was sort of the first thing that gave you pause, that the sales were starting to roll over. They were a little light on inventory. I assume it went downhill from there. What happened next?
So another big thing that happened in Diligence was one of the third-party brands that. So let me back up. So the third-party brands, they still sell those. Those third-party brands and part numbers were part of their R&D process. So they use the data from those and sales numbers to then go and create their own. Makes sense. Seems like a fine strategy. Um, so what I learned was that the third-party brands made up more of the sales than what I had hoped. Third-party brands is going to be lower margin, less control. I didn't love that. In due diligence, one of the brands that made up 25% of their total revenue had a overnight 44% cost of goods increase.
Ooh.
No notice, phone call, hey, this is happening. Game changer.
2022, baby. Brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were, again, just to speak to their character, they informed me immediately. They said, obviously, this is not something we could have predicted, but this happened. And this is exactly why I didn't like the third party brand portion of the business, because you don't control that. Things can change. I've personally had third party brands. That's what I did in the beginning and transitioned, just like this company. I have had brands compete against me, cut me off, all kinds of things. You just can't subject yourself to third party brands that much.
Yep. You don't control your own destiny at all. You will be subservient to their business strategies.
Yeah. So in due diligence, I'm seeing a decrease in sales. It actually got to a point where sales were 10 to 20% down in the final days, as far as year over year numbers. Now we have a 44% cost of goods increase that is going to literally take probably 3 months to play out. Like, they have some inventory, so when do they raise those prices? Is the market going to be receptive to that? Like, that is just a huge mystery box. Like, they could be looking at a 25% revenue decrease if it's so expensive that they can't continue. So that was very
Did you
scary.
do a model? So they were doing about 750,000 of SDE. This 44% price increase on one of their largest inputs. What was that going to hit them on the bottom line? Did you do that math? If they didn't raise their prices?
I did not. So we did not get into a deep financial review. I had my accounting firm lined up, ready to do an audit of sorts, or a review, and start to get some of this more specific vendor cost of goods information. We did not get that far, because of this and the other things I saw. We kept our conversation very open and said, "Hey, what are we going to do? I can't pay you this for what I'm seeing. We need to either go back to the table, renegotiate. We can extend due diligence, give you a chance to right the ship, or I guess we have to walk away mutually, which is ultimate."
Yeah. So there wasn't necessarily one thing. It was just a series of body blows. And then you eventually had to go to them and say, look, guys, I either need a huge purchase price reduction, or did you say that? Or did you say there's no price at which I'm willing to do this deal? See you later.
So that was the hard thing, because I saw so much opportunity with their brand and what I could apply to the business and my company. Like, I still wanted to do it, but being financially disciplined, I could not do it on the terms that we had originally agreed to. But I'm not the kind of person to say, "Hey, here's the new price, take it or leave it." I said, "What do you want to do?" Like, I'm still interested, but it can't be at this price. So what do we do?
And they ultimately said what?
They said, "We're going to pull the listing. We think there's too much here to fix in a short period of time," and that's what they did. And we've kept in touch, and I am still interested in the business if it comes back to the market.
Okay. So I think that's a really interesting point to make, which is that when a deal falls apart, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's bad blood, or that, anybody misrepresented anything, or that it won't get done in the future. So, I mean, I'm really impressed with the way you handled it, where, I mean, who knows? I'm sure your optimal outcome would be over the next 6 months, they fix all these things and they call you back and the business is healthy and you have the opportunity to buy it, right?
Absolutely, I'd be thrilled with that.
Yep. So I mean, I think it really goes to, don't burn bridges in this industry. A lot of deals. I mean, we may have you back in the podcast next year and you'll talk about this deal died 3 times and I finally got it done, right?
Never
You
know.
just never know. Never know.
Yep.
Was there anything else that you kind of took away from this process that will be useful to you in pursuing future deals?
So something else that I kind of saw a different perspective on was how they operated their business. Um, they chose to go heavily with technology. So they had a pretty hefty technology budget, a lot of software, and so their strategy was to manage, with a few key employees, this entire business with technology and software. Um, it it showed me a little of my shortcomings, that how little I actually had. That's great for your bottom line, but it really hurts for growth. So that's something that I chose to implement in mine. I got let's call it an out of the box ERP, that we're working on. Not something that's fully custom like they had. They had some custom NetSuite and some other things that I didn't really want to take on. Um, so yeah, that was interesting to see how they chose to do it. Something I learned. I felt like they were probably a little understaffed with their team. Um, even the leadership said, yeah, we could use a couple more people to keep up with certain demand. The owners are still going out in the warehouse and covering for employees that are out sick or things like that. So that has to change in a $6.5 million business.
Yeah, it's interesting when you do add-ons, right? I mean, because this you were already in this space, you were pretty familiar with how the ops could or should work. How much you can learn about your own business by doing diligence on another one, and not even just not even like stealing secrets or competitive stuff, but just damn, look, an ERP really helps them. Maybe I should have an ERP. Like you get to see the strengths and weaknesses of another business, and it can make you a better business just by looking at another one. Yeah, I've also found conversely sometimes when you're on the sell side, as you put together the materials on the business and market it, it can make you a better business even if you never sell it, right? Because it makes you step back, analyze what you're good at, what you're weak at, where you need to improve, what all your opportunities are, and by the end of the process, you can go, damn, I don't want to sell this thing at all, right? Yep. Okay, cool. We do have another deal. Anything else you want to hit on this one before we move on to the next one? Okay, awesome. So we picked this other deal because it is right in your wheelhouse, automotive accessories. I'm going to put it on the screen for the YouTubers. So this business is an Amazon FBA auto accessories products business. This is actually, Casey, this is in our backyard. It says it's in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, which is where I am in Charlotte. And I guess, are you technically Mecklenburg or?
No, I'm closer to Greensboro. That would be Guilford County.
Okay. Yep. So Casey and I are about 2 hours away by car here in North Carolina. So this business is an FBA auto accessories products business. It does $2.5 million of revenue and $1.1 million of cash flow. Very nice margins. They are asking $5.2 million for it, so nearly 5 times, 4.75 times or so. It was established in 2012. So 10 years old. It has 3 employees. Again, they want $5.2 million for it. So here's a description. This listing is an Amazon FBA business selling its trademarked brand auto accessories. The company is part of Amazon Brand Registry. It features Amazon's choice products. Its top selling SKU has a 4.7 star rating across 5,000 reviews. The ASINs associated with the account receive automatic nomination for Deal of the Days, and the seller also receives information on Amazon events and promo campaigns. Basically, this means they've been on Amazon for a long time and they're part of all the beta programs. Products and packaging are manufactured in China. Additional parts are added and packaged in the USA at the seller's warehouse, and then all products are labeled and shipped from the seller's warehouse to the Amazon FBA warehouses. So it sounds like they've got sort of an assembly / light manufacturing step in their own facility, but most of the products are made in China, and they kind of step them through into FBA through their own warehouse. Seller spends an average of 30 hours a week managing inventory and delegating tasks to the employees. There are 3 staff, which include an account manager and 2 people handling packing. So I imagine, all the staff here are pretty much ops staff. If there's 3 employees and 2 of them are handling packing, it seems like the seller here is really the FBA ecom guy. It says the staff are willing to stick around. The key benefits: year-over-year growth, excellent margins, top seller, great reviews. It says, the business has the ability to produce unique and higher quality products than its competitors, leads to great profit margins, all sorts of generic things. Improve the marketing, launch additional related products, sell products on alternative channels. A couple other interesting things. It says the property is owned. So I would think this means the seller owns his own building and you would have to negotiate some sort of lease back with him. So if that were not in the P&L, you would need to adjust that prospective pro forma rent into the P&L. And it also says, my favorite, the seller is selling to pursue other interests. So I would definitely want to dig in on that as to what exactly interests those are. And is this just code for I'm burned out, which might be okay, happens all the time. Or is this code for, I'm selling at the top, I've had a great 2 years. I would really dig in on why now. So Casey, you're in the automotive parts space. You sell a lot on Amazon. What's kind of your take on this category and this business generally?
Yeah, so my first question is, what type of auto accessories? So there are universal accessories that can be used in any vehicle, and then there's vehicle specific accessories, like Jeep Wranglers are a popular vehicle to upfit with all these specific things, but they're designed to only work on Jeep Wranglers because it has this particular fit. So there's pros and cons to both, but that would be the first thing I would look at. What type of accessories are we talking about here? It would probably be better if they were vehicle specific, if they were niche, really niche, and they have this brand that they've built and they are at least a front runner in their category. That would be
So
ideal.
why is that
Something
better? Because that's a much smaller market, right?
it seems like it, but you can be pretty easily if you know what you're doing and you know the product, you know the market. Maybe you're an enthusiast yourself. You can be a big fish in a little pond. Whereas on Amazon, the big pond China product can flood that if it's a universal product, especially if there's no unique aspects to it. They didn't mention anything about patents or unique designs or that being a part of the process. So my guess is this is a private labeler, and having a brand in a niche would be the ideal setup.
Because you can kind of fly under the radar versus in you're this huge commodified market. Your supplier is going to be on Amazon.
Yeah, and to the customer base, like these enthusiasts for all kinds of different vehicles, most of them probably don't want just unbranded China whatever. Like they care about their vehicle. They're enthusiasts. They want to use something that the community is using. And even though that's not really what Amazon is specifically known for, it does still have some of that effect. You can see a China seller and product a mile away in most occasions. So yeah, so I think that would be ideal, but hard to say what that actually is.
So one thing I noticed is that they've got 40% net margins, right? They're doing 2.5 million in sales, 2.6 million in sales, and they got 1.2 million of cash flow. That to me says that this is some sort of private label brand, and they're pricing it significantly above kind of where the commodity price in the category is. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And that could be good and bad. That could be good for rolling out new products, because if you have a trusted brand, you're probably going to continue that margin and have some brand loyalty. So that sounds great. But yeah, other competition coming into the market could spell a disaster for that being undercut. So surveying the competition in this deal would be absolutely important to do.
Yeah, you'd have to understand the sustainability of that margin, because that's
Yeah, yeah. My gut take on all of everything that we're seeing here is that this person has done a really good job at optimizing this business in this size. I don't see a whole lot here that excites me about potential opportunity. Like you said, the growth and expansion, it's all generic stuff. They've clearly focused on making this business as profitable as it can be, which is a good thing for them. But as a purchaser, I want to add value. I don't see a whole lot here. The thing that I get most excited about was the middle paragraph about that you pointed out about products are made overseas, brought here, but there's some type of manufacturing, assembly, or labeling done here. I would like to understand that a little more. Maybe that's a good defensible thing for their brand. What are they doing to that product, if anything, that makes it special above others? That could be another area to focus on.
Yep, I agree. That was the most interesting to me too, because if you are selling at a huge gross margin, let's just assume they're taking something off the boat from China, slapping their brand on it and just marking it up huge. Eventually, competition is going to come into that market, right, and compress your margin. Unless you're touching it or kitting it or doing something to it, because there's such thing as like a pain in the ass mode, right? Especially on Amazon, where like so much of the Amazon competition is folks metaphorically in their mom's basement, right? Who want to run this like internet money machine and they don't want to ever touch the inventory. and they want to drop ship it straight from China to FBA and all that stuff, right? So if you are willing to endure some of the pain in the ass, like it's got the only way to compete with you is that, maybe whatever the prep is, China won't do it. Or you've got to combine it with some made in the USA parts in your own facility. You got to employ, in this case, this business employs 3 people, like full time. They've got a warehouse. There's a lot of prospective Amazon sellers, would be competitors that would just go, nah, I'll find something else, right?
Yep.
So I thought
Yeah,
that was
barrier to entry is a big factor. Auto parts in general already have a fairly high barrier to entry. With many auto parts, there is vehicle specific data. So there's this whole subset of data you have to manage to help customers find what it is they need. There's a lot of part numbers. Oftentimes it doesn't say how many products are in this company. Accessories is probably not a ton. The one that I was looking at purchasing, it was thousands. It was a lot. Like the barrier to entry, even if somebody looked at that business and then thought, oh, I'm going to go do that on my own, it would take you years. Like you're so far behind at that point, it would be foolish to even try.
Is that mostly like fitment data because there's all these different makes, models, years, and you got to have SKUs for all those, and you got to key it into Amazon so it knows which SKU fit? That's the lift, right?
Exactly. And it updates no less than twice a year as new vehicles are produced. Then they age and start to become into the market for aftermarket parts. So yeah, there's this whole maintenance program. Like if you build out more than a few products, you have to have a team to do it. Whereas a lot of small private label businesses, you can run a long time on a single operator. But
yep.
Not auto parts.
So speaking of a single operator, I liked your point about how optimized you think this business must be. So they're doing $2.5 million of sales, right? Over $1 million of SDE. They've got the owner, of course, but then you got 3 staff, which is an account manager and 2 persons handling packing. So to me, this smells like what Brent Buescher will call a hustler with help, right? Like, everything here is running through the owner. So that's going to be tough for 2 reasons. One, you, the new owner of this business, are going to have to be as good a hustler as that guy, which means as Casey just described, there's a serious learning curve in this industry and many others. So you've got to not only come up the auto parts learning curve, I'm sure this guy's managing all their data, but the Amazon learning curve. I mean, this is a pure FBA business. And I bet that guy who runs it, I bet when it says pursuing other interests, I bet he's got 3 other FBA brands. Right? Like I bet he is a ninja, right? And you're going to have to get that good too. So stepping in and replace those shoes is no joke.
Yeah, very possible. That's how I operate. I have multiple brands, multiple companies. We are getting to the point where I need to hire people to take over some of this growth, make it the business not just about me. But yes, I see that happening very much in this business. I'm shocked that with as much FBA, we don't know exactly how much, but it's claimed that it's all FBA or close to it. I'm going to guess it's mostly. They still have 2 persons handling packaging. That's a lot of assembly and kitting to not be doing fulfillment as well. Maybe they dabble on some other channels, but they don't ever talk about it, so it's probably minimal. So yeah, they're doing something that may be unique there.
A lot of touch there for sure. You get 2 full-time people's worth of touch there. Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot.
The other thing I thought was really valuable about your point about how optimized this is let's even say, you as a buyer can buy this, become as good of a hustler as the owner you just bought out. To scale it now, you're probably fully saturated, right? So to scale it, you're going to quickly need a general manager. You're going to need an Amazon marketing person. You're going to start needing more overhead, right? Because up until this point, sort of the owner role is catching the fractional Amazon manager, general manager, HR manager, warehouse manager, right? He's doing all these fractional roles, but soon it's going to expand beyond one person. So this is sort of the best the margin will ever be from an SG&A scalability. So this business is about to enter sort of a negative scale period, right, in its growth, where margin is going to get worse. And then once you put that infrastructure in, the next leg of scale, you do get true economies of scale and you leverage that fixed cost and margins get better. But for me, I think looking at this, to double this business from here, you're going to need to add several heads that are actually expensive, more managerial heads. And I would model that in. And you'll see probably expected margin compression for the next leg of growth.
Absolutely. I agree. To double this business, you're going to have to work 60 hours a week, not his 30, and you're going to make the same or slightly less over however long that takes you to do.
Yep.
There's not a lot of meat left on this bone. So hats off to the seller, but buyers, be careful.
Yeah. Well, I would say very often when you see a seller selling at this phase, it's because they don't want to do the next leg, right? Which is a whole different skill set, like hiring middle management, training them, putting in all the systems, probably putting in EOS or something like that we've talked about a lot about in this podcast. Taking that next leg up, a lot of founders / hustlers say, I don't want to do that, man. I want someone else to do that. And it's not necessarily malicious because they realize it's going to be expensive. It's more just they don't want to do it. And they would rather sell, maybe take something else from 0 to $1 million in SDE and let someone else deal with the next leg of scale. So I actually do see this a lot at this size of business.
Yeah. And with accessories, your only option is to add new accessories or to add new channels. There is no lifetime value for the products themselves. There could be some loyalty value with the brand, but yeah, this is a slow and arduous build if you maintain this course.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting stuff here. I mean, I don't think we hate this deal. I think there's just a lot to kind of diligence and potentially price in.
Definitely. Definitely. I think there is a right buyer out there, maybe somebody that is in this category already. It would be nice to know on the surface what that category is. Is it niche? Is it general? But maybe it could be an overlay onto what you're already doing and level up that to find some new growth.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Well, Casey, it was really cool to have you on to hear about your expertise in the automotive industry, the 3PL industry, and the deal that you pursued. Hopefully for your sake and the seller's sake, I would love to have you back on. If that deal does come back to life. So to kind of wrap up here, where can people find you on the internet? Is there anything you'd like to plug? This time is yours.
We'll keep it simple. At Casey Cutsail, probably on Twitter would be a good place. CaseyCutsail@gmail.com is my email if somebody wants to reach out.
Oh, all right. Just drop in Casey's inbox if you want to chat FBA or auto parts. Thanks a lot for being here, Casey. It was great to see you.
Thank you.